All right, what's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Good evening to you all. Those of you in my beautiful country of the United States of America, because that's what we're talking about tonight. My name's Rob St. Clair. It is, what is it, Monday, June 2nd, 2025. It is summer. It is national team season, and it's time to talk about the United States women's national volleyball team heading into the 2025 VNL, which starts this week. Many of you already know this. Many of you are tuning in getting back into volleyball for the summer for national team season. Many of you probably saw our predictions video that Everett and I did, where we picked from 1 to 18 where we think the teams this VNL are going to finish. Many of you were surprised to hear me pick my United States of America, the reigning Olympic silver medalists, to finish 6-6 and take ninth place and miss the VNL finals this year. But I believe that to be the case. I stand by that, and we're going to talk about all that in this very video. So plenty to get to. I'm going to try to keep this as efficient as I can. I'm going to tune in and look at the live chat for any questions throughout as we go along here. First and foremost, let's take a look at this and look at who we play and when and where, and just kind of talk about what this tournament is at sort of a high level before we break it down. So first and foremost, VNL, as many of you know, we play 12 matches in the preliminary round. Top 8 make the finals. There's 18 teams now instead of 16, so you got to be even better than top half to make the finals. Really, that's top 7 because Poland is hosting the finals, gets an automatic bid. We will be going 3 different places in the world for the preliminary round. The first will be in Rio, Brazil. The team is already there. That starts this week, Wednesday. The second is in Belgrade, Serbia. Then the third is at home, another stop in Arlington, Texas, where the VNL finals were a couple years ago. There was a regular season week there last year that Everett and I were at. So it's good that these athletes are getting a chance to play a little bit of ball at home. But let's kind of talk about this at a high level here. The 2025 VNL in particular is the first tournament of what we call the quad, the 4-year period for national team calendars that ends in the Olympic Games. And as many of you know, especially if you're American, this particular Olympic cycle ends in the Olympic Games in the United States in Los Angeles in July and August of 2028. What that means, because the FIVB likes to change the Olympic qualification process every year, every quad. The one thing that we know that nobody else in the world knows for sure is that we are qualified for the Olympics. The hosts always get a bid in the Olympics, and they always get the #1 overall seed. We know that. The rest of the world does not know that. So the rest of the world has to work to keep up their world ranking, to place in their continental tournaments next year, to do well in the World Championship in 2027, and then to keep their ranking high in 28 in order to get those last spots to the Olympics. But we already know that. So we have a unique ability in this VNL and kind of through this entire year of 2025, even though there is a World Championship coming up later this year after the VNL. We have the least amount of risk and the least amount of potential consequences of any team in VNL to use this tournament as a training and development ground. It is the first year under brand new head coach Erik Sullivan, who was named this offseason to replace Karch Kirai, who went over to the men's side. So there's a brand new coach. There are a ton of brand new athletes that we're going to talk about in a minute. And the runway is of basically infinite length here, that we can use the VNL to not even remotely worry about the result, but worry about the process of integrating new athletes, and with LA 2028 in mind, build in a 4-year period towards that. We have no pressure of results until then, unless the team decides that they want to send the experienced Olympians, or they want to bring everybody back to try and win a tournament. It would probably be one of the world championships before then, either 2025 or 2027. But I urge the American fan base to join me in being patient with this team. Be patient with this women's national team. Let them grow. Let them be young. Let them have a brand new head coach. Let them have brand new players who have never played internationally before. So we have several players that are still playing in the NCAA that are going to Rio or already in Rio this week. This is a young team with all the runway in the world to grow, learn, develop, and not focus on the result. That is a good thing. If it can be frustrating to watch sometimes this VNL, where it probably will be, do not worry. Be patient. Let this team figure it out, and support them along the way, especially in Arlington if you're able to go there in person. And you can kind of see the way that our schedule breaks down. We have, in my opinion, we have 2 matches per week that are really difficult and 2 matches per week that are really winnable, regardless of the roster that we choose to bring. And that's the thing here. If you didn't watch our full VNL preview video that we did, we have already named a long list of 30 athletes that are eligible to play VNL. And entering each week, we will name 14. 14 of the 30 will travel and play in a given week. And we already know who's traveling to go into Rio. We'll talk about that in a minute. But regardless of who we bring each given week, I believe that, like week 1, for example, we're not beating Italy and we're not beating Brazil in Brazil. Those are our first 2 matches. We will start this tournament 0-2. That's completely okay, because following that, we have Czechia, who's brand new to VNL, and we have Korea, who's the most embarrassing team in the field. So even with this young group that we're sending, which we'll talk about later, there's a great chance we win those 2 matches. Kind of similarly in week 2, we go to Belgrade, Serbia. Immediately we play Serbia. We expect them to be somewhere close to full strength playing at home. I doubt we win that match. Same with Poland. Poland is good. I know we took care of them in the Olympics semi or quarterfinals last year. Totally different situation now. I expect to lose those first 2 games. Then we have the Netherlands and France. The Netherlands has left off more than half of their Olympic roster from their long list, and France is not very good. I think we have a great chance to win both of those games. Then week 3 at home is where it gets a little unpredictable. Thailand, who we play first that week, is not good. The Dominican Republic is pretty good. They will have just about everybody there ready to play. If you haven't seen the news, their starting setter, Niverka Marte, is about 2 or 3 months pregnant right now. She's actually going to play the first little bit of VNL. Maybe she won't be ready to play at that point. I guess we'll see. Then we play Canada, who's in kind of a similar spot to where the U.S. is, but with way less depth. Also a brand new head coach. And then China, who's always good, but they're missing some veterans as well. So I stand by my pick that I made in our predictions video last week, that I think this team's going to finish 6-6, and I think that we will barely miss the top 8 and go to the playoffs. And I will be very pleased with that. If we win 6 games with young athletes against decent to inferior competition, if we take care of those games, I will be very, very pleased. 6-6 would be a great tournament for this particular group, but it's not about the record. It's about the growth that we see along the way. So I'm going to go really quickly through each position group. We're going to talk about the 30-player long list. We're going to break it down position by position. I'm not going to go into like every player in a super lot of detail. You guys are welcome to do that in the chat, but then we'll talk about the roster this week and finish up with some conclusions. Let's start with the setter positions. So one thing to notice right off the bat here is that Olympic starting setter Jordan Poulter is on the roster, but Micah Hancock and Lauren Carlini are not. Of the 13 Olympians that won silver for the United States last year, only 3 are on the long list for this VNL. And like we said in the preview, just because they're on the long list, it means that they can play VNL. It doesn't necessarily mean that they will. So Jordan Poulter could play VNL, or she could not. We don't know how the coaching staff is going to choose to do this, but you're going to see a lot of the veteran athletes, 10 of the 13 that went to the Olympics, take this tournament off, if not retire more permanently. But they're going to see a lot of new faces, and that's awesome. The setters here, Jordan Poulter, who we all know and love, Jenna Gray out of Stanford, Rachel Fairbanks, the young phenom out of Pitt, Ella Mae Powell from Washington, and I'm going to get this name, Sage Ka'aha'aina Torres. Ka'aha'aina, yeah. Good Hawaiian name there. So Sage out of Texas, who played for League One Austin this year and won a championship, the last setter on the roster. I like this group. I love the promise of Rachel Fairbanks. I like just getting new people a chance to set the ball in a brand new system. Jordan Poulter has obviously been there. Her leadership, in at least in practice, regardless of how much she plays, is going to be valuable. But I love the chance to get young players in here, particularly Rachel Fairbanks. I mean, her story was awesome. She played really well at Pittsburgh, kind of out of nowhere, got grabbed by League One Atlanta to play the second half of what would have been the school year professionally. She jumped in the deep end and led her team to the #1 seed in that league and looked really good doing it. So I like this setter group. We're going to see some youth in week 1 that we'll talk about in a minute, but this is kind of the theme that we're going with here for this VNL. A lot of inexperience. This is the time to alleviate that inexperience with legit international matches. The opposite position is a really interesting one. So neither of the Olympians from the last 2 cycles, no Jordan Thompson, no Annie Drews. A couple names that people will recognize from the professional levels: Taylor Mims, Danielle Catino, Stephanie Samity, but also 2 players that are still playing in the NCAA: Olivia Babcock from Pittsburgh and Logan Lednicki from Texas A&M. Both will go back to school this fall. And spoiler alert, both of them are in Brazil, and those are the only 2 opposites on the roster week 1 of VNL. This is incredible. This is so exciting for the United States to develop new athletes at this position. This is, if many of you American fans only really watch our national team and don't totally follow the club volleyball on the women's side and the rest of the world, you may or may not know that the opposite position is the most important position in the game right now. There are 4 opposites in particular: Paula Egonu, Melissa Vargas, Isabel Hawks, Tiana Boskovic, that are so great that if you have one of those players on your team, you are instantly a medal contender. And the opposite position is not one that the United States develops, at least for the international style of game. These are players where all the out-of-system offense goes to them. They dominate the offensive volume. They have to score in and out of system at a super high level. They have to be big. They have to be physical. They have to have big arms. They have to be able to block and serve. But the out-of-system attacking in all 6 rotations, that's the key, is something that the United States doesn't really develop. And that's because of the substitution rules that we have at the junior levels and at the NCAA. It's so flexible to be able to bring players in and out and on and off the court. And so many people DS opposites at the NCAA level. You can't do that internationally. You need a 6 rotation scorer. And I'm excited to get a chance to develop some of those people, Babcock and Lednicki in particular. Olivia Babcock, if y'all haven't seen her, is a phenomenal prospect. She is long, she is physical, she serves the ball tremendously, and she's already used to carrying a load at Pitt that kind of represents what her role would be in the international game. I'm really encouraged by what I've seen from her already. So this is maybe the most important position to look for this VNL is, can we develop a new high volume point scorer at opposite? Not to like join those elite 4 in the world, because those players really can't be matched, but like kind of next on that list, like a Magdalena Stysiak from Poland, Ebrar Karakurt from Turkey, Kira Van Rijk from Canada, like some other point scoring, a handful of different Russians, Tatiana Tolok, for example, like a player that can compete at that level, like similar to the opposites like 5 through 10 in the world. If we can get one of those to be American, not named Thompson or Drews, I'm really encouraged by our chances to compete at the top levels in LA 2028. So definitely got my eye on this position closely. And you notice one player who's not on the list of opposites is a superstar that many are familiar with in Madison Skinner. And the reason why she's not listed as an opposite is because she's listed here instead. Madison Skinner is, according to the USA Volleyball press releases, is listed as an outside hitter. Now, if you watched the inaugural season of League One this year, you saw her win a title at the starting opposite position for League One Austin, but she apparently, just according to like the position on a list, we don't know exactly what her role is going to be, but she is listed as an outside hitter for USA this summer, next to her sister Avery, who is an Olympic starter last year. Ali Franti is back. Khalil Lanier is back. Then you got some younger talent developed in League One recently, and Ronnie Jones-Perry, Sarah Franklin, and Logan Eggleston. And also Mackenzie Adams is back at age 33. She hasn't played in the national team in forever, but sort of a career renaissance for her. And that's another thing. And Everett did a good job pointing this out last week, that like now that there's a brand new coach in Erik Sullivan, there are absolutely no like pre-existing conditions for who is doing what and in what role for this USA women's team. Erik Sullivan is coming in, and all these players are coming in with a completely blank slate. Nobody has like an incumbent position. Everybody has an equal opportunity to earn court time and earn a role here. And that's really cool. And you can see that in how this roster has been named. Like, we're bringing players back into the mix who haven't played for USA in multiple Olympic cycles. We're bringing in we're bringing in college players, for example, not at this position, but at the others, like opposite setter, for example. So that lack of like preconceived notions for the coaching staff and for all the players in their roles is going to really benefit a lot of these athletes. And another point that Everett made that was a good one is that even though the results, like the team result, doesn't matter very much especially in this VNL, the individual players do very much care about their own performances. That, like, there's certainly nobody's Olympic dream is going to be made or broken in 2025. But definitely, this is part of the process of evaluating what this national team has in the next 4 years. And if you play really well this summer, that can only help you potentially make the Olympic roster in 3 or 4 years. So I'm looking at this outside hitter position of so often the last few years, at least on USA, we have tried to start one ball control player and one scorer next to each other at the outside hitter spot. Lately, down the stretch at the Olympics, this was a big topic of conversation last year, and we kind of settled upon Avery Skinner and Catherine Plummer, who are both scorers. But that's the two classic archetypes of outside hitter here are the passer and the scorer. And when I look at this list, this is a list full of scorers. This list of 8 outside hitters is almost exclusively like predominant point scorers. Even like Ronnie Jones-Perry, who's shorter at only 6 feet tall, has a rocket of an arm, is like very much an offensively minded player. So I like that choice in play style for Erik Sullivan's group of outside hitters. Obviously, you got to look at first contact, who can receive the ball the best. But I particularly like Madison Skinner at the outside spot, man. I love her arm mechanics. To me, look better on the left side and especially out of the pipe than they do on the right. Maybe it's because she's a little less familiar with it. The rhythm that she creates on the right just wasn't there yet, in my opinion, but her physicality is so unbelievable. We saw it her Texas championships, and really everywhere she's gone, she's won. I personally like her on the left side internationally because we have a chance to develop opposites that are even younger than her and just create more firepower on both ends of the court. So I love this. A lot of missing familiar faces from the outside hitter group. Really all the Olympians from last year, with the exception of Avery Skinner, who was really tremendous this year playing in the Italian league. And this is a position that has endless potential, but also could be kind of a revolving door based on reception. I hope that the leashes for these players in individual matches and weeks are long so that they can get in there and figure it out. But I guess we'll see. First contact is definitely going to be a question. Moving on to the middle blocker position. This is kind of a mixed bag, but one that I like. It was cool to add the American Pro Leagues as part of the new pieces to the puzzle of what this coaching staff has to evaluate in terms of what the options are for American players. We see so much representation from League One, and in the middle blocker position in particular, like 5 of the 8 here played at home this year. Dana Retke returns. She was an Olympian. Anna Dodson played like half a season at Cuneo in Italy, and Breon Butler was one of the best middles over in Japan, but that's a completely different style. Everyone else really played at home. Asia O'Neill, Amber Agiety, Tia Jimerson, Molly McCage, who's back with USA for the first time in forever, and Serena Gray. So no Haley Washington, no Chiako Bogu, and then no Anna Hall. I believe she's expecting her first child. So congratulations to her and her husband. No volleyball for her this summer. I'm curious about this group, and this isn't so much about the players of the middle blocker position, but more about the system. Is what's the offensive strategy for this iteration of USA women's volleyball on getting the middle blocker position involved? Do we lean a little more towards the NCAA style where we're setting these players most of their offensive load running behind the setter? Or do we go a little bit more internationally and stay in front of the setter more, particularly on the 31 or gap set, which is much more common internationally because you have these opposites that can score front court, back court. You never really want to or need to move them off the right sideline. So it becomes redundant to run a slide over right in front of them. You see a lot more action for the middle attackers internationally in front of the setter. So I guess how are these middles going to get used offensively? And then who can adapt the quickest to the international level in the blocking game? Because while League One, really, really good league, decent amount of international representation, but blocking in the middle position at the international level is maybe the most difficult jump to make in all of volleyball. And Basil, good point. Another piece of how often we can get these players involved in the offense is how we pass the ball. So just kind of sure, there will be some players that have good matches and make impacts, but the role of the middle blocker position more generally is what I'm looking at here in this particular tournament. Last but not least, the libero position. Morgan Hentz has been around. Zoe Jarvis getting a first legit look at the national team. Lexi Rodriguez, who everyone loves, awesome prospect. I'm excited for her to get some run. And then Lauren Briseño who just finished at Baylor, is probably the fourth in my opinion. I think she's on the VNL long list for the sake of training, but also got named to the U23 roster. So I think that's going to be a little more of her focus this summer. But no Justine Wong-Orantes, plenty of opportunity for these other players, hence Rodriguez and Jarvis in particular, to come in and anchor the first contact and just show how much command they can take of a reception unit. Like, we know how important the libero position is and how they're so in charge of the entire 3-person reception unit, and how a great libero, not only in her reception skills, but just her command and her communication, can make a whole team better around her. So these 3 players are all going to have a good opportunity to make a difference here, and I'm pretty excited to see what they do with it. Am I surprised that there's no one besides Hentz from the PVF? That's a great question. Morgan Hentz is the only player on this long list who played domestically in the PVF this year. The rest of the representation, American-wise, was all from League One. No, I am not surprised by that. League One, just straight up, it has superior talent. It just does. I'm not saying it's a superior league or anything about the life cycle of either league long term, but it is unquestionable that League One has better talent and is closer to an international style of volleyball. So that, I think, is very true. But Morgan Hentz is an elite player and a phenomenal highlight reel defender, and she very much deserves to be on this roster. Another thing to point out here is that head coach Erik Sullivan, who's entering his first season with the USA Women, his most recent background was and is as an assistant for the University of Texas. So you see quite a bit of University of Texas representation on this team. Erik Sullivan is also going to coach League One Austin this upcoming season in the second season of League One. So I'm not by no means claiming that there's any bias there. I do think League One is the better league with more internationally representative talent in terms of the on-court volleyball. But it seems to me that that's the one that Sullivan is at least getting more familiar with. And that makes quite a bit of sense, in my opinion. So without further ado, the roster that is already in Rio, Brazil to play this VNL Week 1 features 0 Olympians. It features, I think, only 4 players who have ever played VNL before, and several players who have never worn a USA jersey, at least at the senior level, before. So the setters are LMA Powell and Sage Ka'ahaina Torres. Damn it, I'm going to get that. Sage Ka'ahaina Torres. Madison Skinner, Ronnie Jones-Perry, Sarah Franklin, and Logan Eggleston will be the outside hitters. Olivia Babcock and Logan Lednicki will be the opposites. Both players still in college. Amber Agiety, Anna Dodson, Molly McCage, Sharina Gray will be the middle blockers. Morgan Hentz and Zoe Jarvis will be the liberos this week. Again, we play Italy, followed by Brazil, followed by Czechia, followed by Korea. Throwing a very young group, inexperienced group, into the deep end. You get to play the reigning Olympic and VNL champs immediately, who are bringing what looks like a pretty good roster Week 1, and we get to play Brazil in Brazil, match number 2. If we take a set in either of those matches, I will be overjoyed. But again, that's not what it's about. It's about getting these players' feet wet in international competition. They'll be able to just see and feel what the international level is like, because it is different, and to set up for 2 very beatable opponents later in the week in Czechia and Korea. And those 2 teams are not very good. Korea went 0-12, 2 VNLs in a row in 22 and 23, and then Czechia is brand new. So good chance for this team to take some licks the first couple matches and then maybe apply what they learned the second 2 matches in Rio this week. So let's see. I'm just going to scan the chat here for any more takes. I'm happy to see. So I put a poll in the chat that's if you guys agree with me that will this United States team, will they or will they not make the VNL finals? We've got 52% say no right now. Very close. I respect both sides of this. This roster overall is so deep that there is so much just raw talent that we can put out a product on the floor that could make the playoffs if we get lucky in a couple matches. And I think that would come in Week 3 as we go back to see who we play and where. If we steal a game in Week 3 and we're able to go 3-1, maybe finish like a 7-5. I think 7-5 in the preliminary round is the best record I could possibly see from this team. That would probably be good enough to make the playoffs. Maybe it happens, but again, that's not the point. Be patient with this team. Let them have the runway. let them play together and figure it out, and let them start to build a new identity of United States women's volleyball. And that's what this tournament is really all about. And honestly, I'm very much looking forward to it. 12 guaranteed matches to get new people in and get better. Who can come in and play well immediately, who can come in and play well together is another piece of this, because what I assume that Erik Sullivan will do and his staff will do is move things around quite a bit. Hopefully it's not so much like within a given match. I hope that match to match, we kind of go with the starting lineup and stick with it as much as possible, because even if it doesn't go well, the players need the runway of an entire match to learn, figure it out, adapt on the fly. But in a given week, like week 1, for example, Italy, Brazil, Czechia, Korea, I would be stunned if we saw the same starting lineup in any 2 of those 4 matches. I think it'll be a completely different group, basically all 12 of these matches. That will make it very difficult to generate long-term chemistry. That's okay. What we're trying to do right now is get a glimpse of some things that might be possible. What middles work well with setters, what opposites work well with setters and then getting set out of system, what 3 receivers work well together. There's so many, like, it's not just the individuals, it's the relationships between them that are also going to be examined, the outside hitters in the reception pattern in particular. So there's going to be a lot of movement. Hopefully it's not within the matches. Hopefully it's from match to match, but that's okay. That will work against us, like, trying to make the VNL finals. But again, I insist that is not the point, and you all should be patient. So I'm saying y'all should be patient. I'm not saying y'all shouldn't support. You should absolutely support. If you want to watch this U.S. women's national team, all the matches will be streaming live on VBTV starting this week, Wednesday. The team is already down in Rio. They're getting ready to go. Less than 2 days away from international season. So watch on VBTV. Make sure you join the Volleyball Source Discord if you're interested in this type of thing. There's a link in the description. We've got several very active and knowledgeable American fans in there that are talking about both the men and the women all the time, and that'll be a good place to just interface with volleyball fans throughout this tournament. And stick around, stay tuned to Volleyball Source, because we've got a lot going on. Everett's on the road right now, hitting VNL week 1 on the women's side in Ottawa. He and I will both be together for VNL for the men later on in Chicago, but we're going to go live every Tuesday with our weekly podcast, the 9x9, and a bunch of other coverage, especially when we're able to be on site at these events. So let us at Volleyball Source be your home and your sort of community hub for this VNL. And scanning the chat really quick. Nope, that's about it. I appreciate you all watching. Happy national team season. Go USA.